but the condition itself is not enough.
Dear Mr. Massa, I'm just trying to mind my own business. What's the matter? It's just another day, another black king captured. I'm about to lose my brain, stuck inside this ghetto rapture. I got a lot of smoke. If you want it, you can have it. They want a hat trick, but this is black girl magic. Ain't talking about the kind that'll make you disappear, but I'm talking about the power of the melanin within. Ain't looking for trouble, but I'ma say this one time. I put two dukes up if you try to touch mine. We still want justice for Samir and Trayvon. You say you don't see color, but racism ain't blind. They targeting little kids whose skin look just like mine. So I'm paranoid, it's a war zone outside. And I'm a black queen, so if you ask me to step out of my car, you gon' have to snatch me. Cause I ain't going no damn well. Had to spend my whole life living unfair. Ancestors got my back and they right here. You can never understand, it's a nightmare. Living in my black shoes by the black rules. You can keep your handshake, I don't dap coons. The white man that go nuts if he can't shoot. But you all on his side like a damn fool. Make it make sense.
We are oppressed.
Queen.
We are exploited. We are downtrodden.
Make it make
Queen.
We are
sense.
denied not only civil rights, but even human rights.
Ahmadiyyah.
So the only way we're going to get some of this
Ahmadiyyah.
oppression and exploitation
Queen.
away from us or aside from us is come together
Queens.
against the common enemy. Who taught you to hate the texture of your
Ahmadiyyah.
hair? Who taught you to hate the color of your skin?
Ahmadiyyah.
Parents, pay attention to the books, the school system, even to your little children. Lies mixed with wisdom. His skin too bright, so he was blind to the prison. My skin just right, so I collide with division. You trying to pray to God, but we tired of religion. No savior saving, we got to save our savings. We used to pay miss, how we gon' make the slave rich? But who's to blame, and tell me why you complaining? We need a team effort just to rule the nation. Like a bad relationship, missing communication. We missing moderation. They're trying to get a poison to my population. No reparations. I'm getting tired of Satan.
We are oppressed.
I'm
Queen.
getting tired of waiting.
We are downtrodden.
Queen.
We are denied not only civil rights, but even human rights.
Ahmadiyyah.
So the only way we're going to get some of this
Ahmadiyyah.
oppression and exploitation.
Queen.
Right. Hello, everyone. Thanks for tuning back in once again to the original Queen Ahmadiyyah Shakur show. I'm your host, Queen Ahmadiyyah Shakur, and this is your morning wake-up call. So as you're coming in, please feel free to go ahead and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Be sure to click that notification bell and click the word all so you're notified each time the Queen Goddess goes live. All right, so let's get into it. Shout out to the Elder Barbara Rashad live in the chat. All right, that Crazy Beach Aries, G from the land, Anita Harrell, Claudette, Desmond is here, Miss Sheila. Okay, shout out. I see you, Easy. Shout out to all of my loyal royals and everyone tuned into the Queen. I see you, Donna, Cookie, we the people. Okay, so with that all been said, let's get into it. I'm going to have a brief word from my sponsor at 12 Tribes.
Do not buy 12 Tribes on Earth hair growth oil and hair magic elixir unless you want super healthy, gorgeous hair that grows. They have a whole line of amazing hair growth products, including hair growth leave-in conditioner spray, hair growth shampoo, hair growth spray, and hair growth butter. I'm starting to sense a theme here. They include quality natural ingredients. They smell amazing, and you can see the results for yourself. So if you're looking for healthy hair growth for your natural or relaxed hair, try 12 Tribes on Earth today.
Okay, so don't forget you can purchase 12 Tribes hair oil at Etsy.com. Just look for Lisa Crafts. You can also find it at Walmart.com. Okay, so let's get into it. Before we talk about all that Trump is doing, there's a report that came out on yesterday. I think I first heard about it on TikTok, where there was a stabbing at a Texas school, and the children had been instructed to give up their phones. When they get to school, they have to turn in their phones. Now, they're saying that the parents are very upset about this, and people are speculating that the reason they're taking these phones is because they don't want any of the incidents being filmed. Now, that makes me believe that it has something to do with Carmelo Anthony, with the case against him, where he stabbed the young man at the track meet. Okay, after he was being bullied supposedly by the young man and his brother. Remember, there was footage of that. The police never released it. But I absolutely believe that that footage exonerates Carmelo Anthony, and that's why it hasn't been released. So I believe this all has something to do with it. They don't want these incidents being filmed. Now think about it. If something like that happened to your child or your grandchild, and there's nobody to record and see what actually happened, they could just tell all these lies. But also, it's not a good idea, in my opinion, because what about these school shooters? If the children don't have their phones, none of them will be able to call for help. Okay, so I don't think that's a good idea, but let's talk about it. An email to parents did not include details of what happened. So this is the thing. After the student was stabbed, they didn't even really give the parents much information on it. Okay, so let's go to the news report. Like some, everyone, please like and share. Thank you in advance.
We have new developments about a stabbing that happened inside a high school in Denton. Parents at Ryan High on Denton's east side say the district never told them one student stabbed another on Friday. As WFA's Cole Sullivan reports, they want more information about what happened.
At a place like this, you might hear knowledge is power. And if that's the case,
there was none of that.
Crystal Mendoza feels pretty powerless. She's the parent of a sophomore at Ryan High School in Denton, an alum, too.
I spent 4 wonderful years here.
But she still hasn't learned what really went down here Friday. It started with an email home about an ambulance at the school.
To assist a student in need of medical attention. That's it.
She didn't think much of it.
In my head, I was like, if it was more serious, there would have been a follow-up email.
Until she saw this.
New tonight, Denton police are investigating after a student was injured in a stabbing at school.
I was so angry because I started to piece everything together.
Denton police have filled in some of the blanks. They say one student stabbed another who went to the hospital with non-life-threatening injuries. The suspect was immediately detained, police say, and no one else threatened.
And I went back to that email from the morning. I was in shock. I couldn't believe that there was not more details and that this was the way that I was finding out.
The district didn't get back to us tonight. It is a weekend. On Friday, a spokesperson said all other students were promptly and safely relocated at the time of the incident, and staff worked quickly with first responders to ensure the situation was contained. The matter has been fully addressed, but not well enough, if you ask Mendoza.
If there's a violent attack where there is an arrest, I would like to know, you know?
She plans to voice her concerns at a school board meeting this week. In Denton, I'm Cole Sullivan.
Okay, so that's a darn shame. They know exactly what they were doing. Why wouldn't you tell the parents? The way they made it sound in the email sounded as if someone possibly just got sick. Okay, maybe just weren't feeling good. That's how they made it sound, trying to sweeten it all up. Okay, and so Miss Sheila says, salute to Queen. We appreciate you. Thank you, beloved. I appreciate you. Thank you for your kind words and your contribution to the channel. Peace, love, and blessings. So they say the stabbing occurred around 9:10 a.m. on Friday, according to Denton police. Police said one student stabbed another with a weapon, sending the victim to the hospital with non-life-threatening injuries. The suspect was immediately detained at the scene and later taken to the Denton County Juvenile Detention Center on charges of aggravated assault with a deadly weapon. Now, no one else was threatened or injured during the incident, according to police. Parents said they learned about the stabbing not from the school district, but from Friday evening's news coverage. Now, the lack of detailed communication has left the parents frustrated less than 2 weeks into the new school year. They say, we were very angry. We were shocked. Unfortunately, rumors started flying. Why? Because there's no transparency from the district. Now, Denton ISD released a statement on Friday saying all uninvolved students were promptly and safely relocated during the incident and that staff worked with first responders to contain the situation. The district praised students and their teachers for following safety procedures and said the matter has been fully addressed. But Mendoza said she is also a Ryan High School alumni, and she says the district's response falls short. Mendoza said parents don't need identifying details about those involved, but they do want transparency about serious incidents. We don't need names. We just need to know there was an incident that happened, and this is how we addressed it. If you're concerned, our lines are open, she says. If there is a violent attack where there is an arrest, I would like to know. Now, the district did not respond to requests for comment when contacted over the weekend. Mendoza said she plans to voice her concerns at this week's school board meeting, as she should. Okay, when something like that happens, that's very serious. People absolutely want to know what happened. Okay, they may want to come and pick their kids up. Maybe their child was standing right there when the incident occurred, and maybe they're traumatized. They should have full transparency. That's just so ignorant to me. I don't know why they're trying to hide it. I guess they didn't want the bad publicity, but now they're still getting it. So what was the point? Okay, so with that all being said, let's talk about Chicago. Now the mayor is going in on Trump as per usual, and then Lori Lightfoot, the former mayor, even had some things to say. Okay, and let's talk about it. Trump is out here doing a lot. He's threatening to take away the funding from Baltimore from the bridge also, because he's upset with the Baltimore mayor, Wes Moore. This is the ignorance of y'all's president. Anytime he gets upset with someone who's one of his critics or someone who doesn't want to immediately bow and bend to do whatever he says to do, then he wants to create problems and starts talking about taking away funding. He's saying the same thing about the Smithsonian also.
Tonight, National Guard troops will be armed while patrolling the streets of Washington, D.C. A DoD official telling NBC News they're officially authorized for self-protection. It's a scene Chicago is hoping to avoid. Their mayor, Brandon Johnson, tonight pushing back on President Trump's threat to send the National Guard to more American cities.
We don't need cities across America occupied by our military. They don't have policing powers. They don't have arresting powers.
The president also suggesting on social media this morning, I will send in the troops to Baltimore after targeting New York and Chicago in the Oval Office Friday.
We'll go in and we'll straighten out Chicago, just like we did D.C. Chicago is very dangerous.
According to Chicago police statistics, murders, robberies, and shootings are all down more than 30% this year. Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker accusing Trump of abusing his power and saying in a statement that there's no emergency that warrants deploying the National Guard. Chicago has been a frequent focus of Trump's criticism, going back to his first term when he set hundreds of federal agents in 2020 to target violent crime.
Help is on its way.
But the latest threats come after the president mobilized D.C.'s National Guard this month and took over the California National Guard in July over the objections of state and local leaders. As Illinois leaders and the ACLU vow a swift legal response.
There's a higher barrier for the president to send National Guard into Chicago, but he's going to have to articulate a reason for doing it.
Shaquille Brewster joins us now from Chicago. And Shaq, the Trump administration may have a harder time getting National Guard boots on the ground where you are in Chicago compared to here in D.C.
Absolutely, Hallie. Leaders here are raising constitutional and states' rights concerns, suggesting that legal pushback would come almost instantly. It's a similar line of messaging that you're hearing from Maryland's Governor Wes Moore, who's calling Trump's use of a National Guard a scare tactic. Hallie?
A big deportation fight is entering a new phase tonight, with the Trump administration now saying a man at the center of its immigration crackdown.
Okay, so as you all can hear, he's still talking crazy. Now he wants to arm these people. Let's go to former Mayor Lori Lightfoot, and then let's get into what he's saying about Baltimore. Likes up, everyone, please like and share. Thank you.
Mayor Lori Lightfoot. Lori, thank you so much for spending your time with us this weekend. So what's your immediate reaction to the possibility of the National Guard being deployed to Chicago?
Well, obviously, it would be a terrible mistake. But as we've seen throughout his political career, and particularly this second term, President Trump likes breeding chaos and fear. But what I will urge my fellow Chicagoans is to lay daisies at the feet of any military force that shows up in our city. Don't show up in mass. Don't show up to engage in antagonistic tactics. Let's show what we know, which is how to protest peacefully in the city of Chicago.
Now, on Friday, President Trump suggested he'd send the National Guard to Chicago because that's what people in the city want. Here's what he had to say.
And the people in Chicago, Mr. Vice President, are screaming for us to come. They're wearing red hats, just like this one, but they're wearing red hats. African-American ladies, beautiful ladies, are saying, please, President Trump, come to Chicago. Please. I did great with the black vote, as you know, and they want something to happen. So I think Chicago will be our next, and then we'll help with New York.
All right, you heard the president's words right there. So what's your reaction to Trump's words and what he had to say?
It's painful to have a president who lives in his own fantasy world, who lies with such incredible ease. Nobody here in Chicago is asking him to come. Our violent crime rates are down, as they are all across this country. He will manufacture a crisis. He will try to provoke confrontation and then use that as a justification. That's why we need to do what many before who engaged in peaceful protests, not only in this city, but across the country. We need to lay daisies at the feet of any military force here. The National Guard is not a police force. They are a military force. We've seen, unfortunately, tragedy strike when they've gone in other cities, particularly during the summer of 2020 in Minneapolis and Louisville. We don't need the National Guard here. We have great partnerships, and we have for decades with our local sheriff's department, the state.
For those of you who don't remember, back in 2020, during the protesting for Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, and George Floyd, there was a Black business owner killed in Louisville, Kentucky. Okay, if you all remember that, because I reported on it, by the National Guard. There was no reason whatsoever for them to shoot that man. He was passing out plates of food to people who have been protesting. Okay, please pay attention. He was a restaurant owner. But let's continue. So this is all a recipe for disaster. And the fact that all of these state officials that you see Trump targeting are Black people, okay? Black mayors and Black governors, all right? And Black communities, and then lying and saying that the Black people want him to come there. Trump, if there's anyone we want to come to the hood, it's not you. Okay, that's who it isn't. Let me continue.
Police, our federal partners, there is no reason whatsoever that a political sideshow that President Trump is going to manufacture to send the military into the great city of Chicago. We're not going to have it. I'm confident that there will be lawsuits that will be brought. But we are mobilizing neighborhood by neighborhood to make sure that our residents actually feel safe, that our small businesses do not suffer economically, as has happened in other cities. But we'll be prepared to push back on what is an absolutely illegal authoritarian action on the part of this president.
Now, when you were mayor in 2021, you actually asked then U.S. Attorney General Merrick Garland to send ATF agents to Chicago for 6 months, as well as more federal prosecutors and federal marshals. So should Chicago welcome help from the National Guard as well? What's the difference here?
No, the difference in the summer of 2020, we were awash in illegal guns, and we needed additional support from the federal government to frankly step up and do its job. That is far different than what the experience is that we're talking about now. And that was actually not Merrick Garland in 2020. That was under the Trump administration. What we said is, look, if you really want to be a partner with us, help us stop the flow of illegal guns. Pass federal common sense gun control measures. Of course.
So you think you know Wicks, but do you really?
Federal government for the things that we actually needed were forthcoming. So it's an apples to apples situation. And again, the National Guard is not a police force. They are a military force. They are trained not to de-escalate, not to build relationships with community in a time of.
Do you all hear how Lightfoot is sitting up here lying through her teeth and trying to backpedal? Do you all hear this? She's the one that gave Trump the idea to come there. Okay, do y'all hear this? Now she's sitting there backpedaling. Why does it look like she walked into a room and someone cut a fan on dead in her face, okay, and caught her off guard? That's a whole blowback. All right. The crazy bitch Eric said she needs a wig. Yeah, she needs two of them, one for the front and one for the back. With that all being said, this lady needs to sit down somewhere, okay? Now, it was all right when she did it. Now she's looking real stupid. Because, lady, you literally did the same thing. Now she's making up excuses. She's the one, Luna said, not Lightfoot. Yeah, that's what I've always called her. She's the one that probably gave Trump's dumb self the idea. But let me continue.
Crisis, what they're trying to do is put down a threat with lethal force. That is not what we need in this moment in Chicago. Now, we've welcomed the National Guard. They were great partners and friends of ours through COVID, through other national disasters. That is what they were built to do domestically in communities. They are not a local police force, and that's got to be very clear. We don't need them to do policing on the streets of Chicago.
And I was referring to under the Biden administration in 2021. But I do want to ask you this then. You said that's not what Chicago needs. So what does Chicago need right now?
Chicago needs to make sure that federal funds to shore up our social safety net, whether it's from Medicaid, whether it's for food programs, whether it's support for after-school programs. That's where we need the federal government to step up and do its job. But what we don't need is a manufactured crisis where the military is here. So Donald Trump gets this visual of acting like he's the commander in chief and taking over control of local cities. That is a stage act. We don't need that. We need him to focus on doing what he said he would do, which is to lower gas prices, to lower grocery prices, to make sure that we're not involved in any more foreign wars. All the things that he promised that he was going to do, he's failed miserably. So this is a distraction from the fact that in 9 months, he has failed to do his job as president of the United States.
Now, within those 9 months, President Trump has sent or threatened to send troops to L.A., D.C., Chicago, New York, and now Baltimore. So why do you think those cities are on his list?
Because they're predominantly Black, okay? And they have Black leadership.
Well, it's obvious, isn't it? They're all Democratic cities. And in many of those cities, they're all controlled by Black mayors. This is reactivating his playbook from his campaign in 2020 when he went after Chicago and DC and Atlanta and other cities run by Democratic mayors, and many of them at that time run by Black women. Trump does not believe the cities are his allies, and so he wants to attack us, even though cities across this country are 80% of the GDP. The American economy would crater without the resources and economic firepower that cities bring to bear. He doesn't care about that. He wants to make sure that we submit to his will, and that is never going to happen in the city of Chicago.
Now, I will say right now, lawsuits are still playing out over the president's National Guard deployment in Los Angeles. So are there any lessons Chicago can learn from L.A.?
Well, I think there's lessons that we can learn from LA and from DC, but also going back to 2020. We have to fight him in the courts. We have to fight him peacefully. There's not a civil rights protest movement that has gone through this country in the last 100 years that hasn't either emanated in Chicago or that Chicago hasn't been a big part of, whether it's the labor movement, whether it's women's right to vote and choice, whether it's the disability rights, environmental, you name it. We are ground zero for a lot of that peaceful protest. We're going to draw upon that history and make sure that we make people see on a national and international stage, one, that Chicago is a great American city. Number two, that we do not submit to dictators and that we are handling our business ourselves.
Former Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot, thank you.
I cannot with her and that hairline. It's just hideous. What is she thinking? Before she left office of mayor, she should have at least gotten her hairline fixed, honey, because I would have. Okay, anyway, Reggie, thank you for your contribution to the channel, beloved. I appreciate you. Peace, love, and blessings. Okay. Songwriter Sonny said, is she mixed with Bozo? Okay, looking all crazy, honey. Then she tried to slide in some of that feminist stuff. Okay, if y'all noticed, she tried to slide that in real quick, like, lady, sit down somewhere. Okay, so now let's talk about it because you already know that he's eyeing Baltimore. Now he's acting like Baltimore is so riddled with crime. He's got to send troops there. And now all of these troops are going to be armed.
where President Trump is considering sending the National Guard. He traded barbs with Maryland Democratic Governor Wes Moore, offering federal help for what the president called out-of-control, crime-ridden Baltimore. Listen.
While the president is spending his time from the Oval Office making jabs and attacks at us, there are people actually on the ground doing the work who know what supports would actually work to continue to bring down crime.
CBS News senior White House and political correspondent Ed O'Keefe joins us from the White House with more on this. Ed, good morning to you. So help our viewers understand the legal grounds the president has to deploy the National Guard, but also the political framework here and how Democrats are trying to fight back.
Well, here in Washington, given that it is a federal district and there is explicit law laying out when and how a president can declare emergencies that essentially give him control of the city, he can do what he's doing. There's a 30-day clock that is running that at the end of it will require congressional involvement or the president coming up with some other way to suggest that the troops need to continue to be deployed. And he has said he's going to consult with Congress and try to get them to, in essence, pass some kind of open-ended order to allow this to continue. As for other cities, it usually requires a governor to request National Guard deployment and federal assistance that would result in troops being deployed. We did not see that, remember, in Los Angeles. We did not see that, or there's a good chance we may not see that again if he decides to go to Chicago. But there also were judges that said a president can, if he feels there is an emergency, do this kind of thing, just within certain bounds and whatnot. So we've seen this disagreement break out since he suggested on Friday he's getting serious about deploying into Chicago. The mayor of the Windy City weighed in on Sunday.
What he is proposing at this point would be the most flagrant violation of our Constitution in the 21st century. The city of Chicago does not need a military occupation.
And the governor of Illinois, J.B. Pritzker, also weighed in, saying again that this is unconstitutional and writing in part, Donald Trump is attempting to manufacture a crisis, politicize Americans who serve in uniform, and continue abusing his power to distract from the pain he's causing families. So you can see there that the lines that are being drawn. We should point out he's talking about deploying in New York, in Baltimore, in Chicago. What do all those cities have in common? They're run by Democrats. They're also run by black men. And there is some belief among his critics that the president is doing this in part to target African-American leaders who are running these big cities.
Wow, very serious stuff there, Ed. We'll keep watching this closely. Thank you very much.
That's exactly what he's doing, okay? That's exactly what he's doing. Now, also, he has threatened to stop the funding for that bridge in Baltimore that collapsed. Trump threatens to cut off key bridge repair money after Maryland governor tells him to keep National Guard out of Baltimore. Trump escalates attacks on nation's only black governor as African-American leaders continue to be his favorite targets. So Trump deepened his feud with Maryland's Democratic governor on Sunday and threatened to cancel funding for the reconstruction of the Francis Scott Key Bridge, which was destroyed by a ship strike last year. The Republican president made no attempt to offer a reason for his threat other than his own political differences with Wes Moore, Maryland's governor and the only black leader of the U.S. state. Instead, the president made clear in a Truth Social post that disaster relief funding would be wielded as a political weapon against any state or local leaders who dared to challenge him. Do you all hear this? Do you all hear this? Darn shame. I mean, he's just gone awry, okay? I told y'all this is a man of lawlessness. I gave Wes Moore a lot of money to fix his demolished bridge. This is what Trump said on Sunday, which isn't even true, by the way, a whole lie, okay? He is such a liar. He wasn't even president in 2024 when the bridge collapsed. So how the hell did he give this man money for it? Are y'all listening to the lies? Are y'all listening to the lies? He said he gave him a whole lot of money. No, you didn't, sir. Sir, you were not even in office. Okay, that's what you weren't. Anyway, with that all being said, the federal funding was issued under Biden's administration, okay? All right. They had a project and they had money that was specifically allocated during the government funding negotiations. And I do believe I reported on that. But anyway, he goes on to say, I will now have to rethink that decision. Sit down somewhere. Now, the post came in response to Moore's invitation to the president to walk the city of Baltimore. Moore attempted to extend an olive branch to the president with his invitation last week, which came amid Trump's threats to extend his federal takeover of Washington, D.C. To other cities with Democratic leadership and large Black populations. They said, Donald Trump, if you're not willing to walk our communities, keep our name out of your mouth. Now, that's what Moore said last week. And of course, Trump didn't like it. And in fact, Trump wasn't going to have it. In a lengthy Truth Social post on Sunday, he claimed the governor's record on crime is very bad. It's a very bad one, unless he fudges his figures on crime like many of the other blue states are doing. Okay, he said he would send in troops like he did in Los Angeles to quickly clean up the crime. Okay, using this as a threat, honey. I want you all to pay attention how he's wielding his power, and clearly this is political overreach. Now, when it is like that in Baltimore, I will proudly walk the streets with a failing because of crime, because of crime, governor of Maryland, he wrote. I guess Trump thinks he told a hint. Now, the White House announced earlier in August that it was federalizing Washington, D.C.'s police force and deploying the National Guard and agents from multiple federal law enforcement agencies on the streets of the nation's capital. Now, the purpose was ostensibly to combat a crime wave, though the administration's explanation has shifted between fighting crime and beautification measures. After a few days, control of the police was returned to city leaders. National Guard troops remain across D.C., however, and federal agents continue to patrol city streets. The president said on Friday that he was looking to expand his efforts to other cities led by Democrats, although legal restrictions over the deployment of the National Guard will likely hinder that plan. Trump, please sit your arse down somewhere, causing mayhem and mischief with his silly self. Moore, like other Democratic governors, has said that he will refuse to authorize the deployment of Maryland's National Guard troops for crime-fighting efforts in Baltimore. But Sunday's post from the president is an indication that he could attempt to use Department of Transportation and FEMA disaster relief funding as a means of enticing Democratic governors to do his bidding. It's interesting, the president seems to be more concerned about my future than he is about the future of the American people. And that's why I'm asking him to keep his focus. Okay, this is what Moore told CBS on Face the Nation when asked about Trump's remarks about the governor's possible presidential ambitions, saying, focus on the things that actually matter right now, which is the fact that his economic policies are driving up prices on everything from electronics to clothes that we wear to food that we eat. Talk about the fact that he has immigration policies that are knocking out tens of thousands of jobs in the state of Maryland. Talk about the fact that you are about to kick veterans and seniors off of health care. Don't worry about my future. Worry about theirs. I guess he told him. Did y'all hear that? Did y'all hear that? How did he told him? Okay, I absolutely am here for it. He said, you worry about theirs. Honey, he let him know real quick. And this is why Trump's all mad, butthurt, been out of shape. Now he's making threats. Oh, I'm coming down there with an armed National Guard. We're going to get rid of crime and all of that. And then get rid of you. I know that's what he's thinking with his stupid self. Okay? Anyway, after his appearance on the show on Sunday, Moore fired back at Trump's President Bone Spurs. This is what he called him. President Bone Spurs will do anything to get out of walking, even if that means spouting off more lies about the progress we're making on public safety in Maryland. I know darn well he did not call Trump President Bone Spurs. I bet Trump is fuming right about now. Trump's on his way to Maryland and he's bringing hell with him. Watch what I tell you, okay? Oh, he is livid right about now. Anyway, Moore said, referencing the president's medical deferment that exempted him from being drafted into military service during the Vietnam War. He said, hey, Donald, we can get you a golf cart if that makes things easier. Just let my team know. I absolutely cannot. The Francis Scott Key Bridge, named after the poet who penned the Star-Spangled Banner, was a Baltimore landmark for decades. Its destruction in 2024, the result of a cargo ship losing power and steering into a support column, also caused the deaths of a few crew who were performing maintenance on the bridge in the late evening hours when the incident took place. The closure of that stretch of Maryland's I-695 Beltway continues to disrupt transit around Baltimore and had immediate and significant effects on the state economy. The destruction shuttered the port of Baltimore for 11 weeks at a staggering economic impact estimated around $15 million per day. In a separate post on Truth Social, the president questioned whether Moore, who served in the Army, lied about being awarded a Bronze Star. Do y'all see how stupid and petty Trump is? Okay, now because he's upset with this person, he wants to imply that they lied about receiving a Bronze Star. Reagan said Trump must be like, catch me outside. Oh my goodness, I absolutely cannot. Now, of course, that didn't go unnoticed because you see, the governor fired back in an X post saying, did Donald Trump, the president of the United States, lie about an injury to dodge the Vietnam draft? Okay, Trump, I know you can't talk about anybody lying, honey, about anything pertaining to the military, because we all know that you sat up there and lied about them bone spurs so you didn't have to be drafted with your scary, cowardly self. Now you want to act like the big bad wolf as it comes to dishing out what's going on with the American economy, with tariffs and all that. He needs to sit down somewhere, y'all. The orange man needs to sit down somewhere. Okay? Now listen, Trump signs executive orders to eliminate no cash bail for suspects in D.C. and nationwide. The move targets progressive criminal justice reforms that Trump calls central to crime problems in major cities. All this coming from the same clown, okay, who pardoned January 6th insurrectionists, okay? He let whole insurrectionists go out and be free. He has no respect for law enforcement, and if they think that he does, they're fools, because that's why he doesn't respect the rule of law himself for his political companions, okay, only for it to be used against political rivals and anyone who dares to speak against him in a critical way. All right? At the end of the day, and if he had any respect for them, knowing that a police officer by the name of Brian Sicknick died during that whole riot at the Capitol, why would he pardon the very people who were there who caused it all? Okay? Anyway, let me continue, because President Donald Trump has signed an executive order on Monday that aims to eliminate cashless bail for suspects arrested in Washington, D.C., and a separate order focusing on ending the policy nationwide. Now, it was confirmed earlier Monday that Trump was ordering the end of cash bail policies nationwide by threatening to revoke federal funding for jurisdictions all across the country, saying that we're at a point where Washington is booming again. This is what Trump told reporters in the Oval Office before signing the orders, saying people are pouring in like we haven't seen for years. Now, Trump said that over the past 11 days since his plan to make D.C. safer took effect, there have been 0 murders, while authorities have arrested a total of well over 1,000 people and took hundreds of guns away from young kids that were throwing them around like it was candy. Do y'all hear this? Do you ever hear this idiot? I mean, the lies and embellishments, okay? So there was young kids roaming around the streets of D.C. with guns, tossing them around like candy. Really? And there has not been one murder committed? Yeah, I don't believe you, Trump. Sit down somewhere. Okay, murders are committed literally every day. He added that scores of illegal aliens were also apprehended. Not scores. Trump had spoken about ending the no cash bail policy earlier this month, though hinted that he was going to do it through Congress using Republican votes because the Democrats are weak on crime, totally weak on crime, he said. Every place in the country where you have no cash bail is a disaster. This is what Trump said at the time, specifically naming New York and Chicago, saying, I mean, bad politicians started it, bad leadership started it, but that was the one thing that's central, no cash bail. Somebody murders somebody and they're out on no cash bail before the day is out. This is how ignorant he is, because that's not even true. That's just how ignorant he is, because usually the no cash bail is reserved for low level crimes that don't include violence. Okay, so he's so stupid. He doesn't even know what he's talking about. Okay. So anyway, no cash bail is generally considered a progressive approach to criminal justice, as such reforms have been implemented in states like New York. Data shows that bail elimination can lead to higher recidivism rates. Now, the Data Collaborative for Justice concluded in February of 2024 that the elimination of money bail increased recidivism for people charged with non-violent felonies with recent criminal history and with a recent violent felony arrest, which is decreased, while it decreased recidivism for people charged with misdemeanors and people with no recent criminal history. Now, New York City Mayor Eric Adams, a former police officer, has been a strong critic of state's cashless bail law, which was enacted by former Governor Andrew Cuomo in 2019 and perpetuated under his successor, current Governor Kathy Hochul. Adams, who has argued that Cuomo's era bail reforms drove up recidivism rates, resulting in offenders repeatedly being arrested and released back onto the streets, now faces the former governor in November's mayoral election. Now, Democratic Socialist candidate Zoran Mandani, who is seen as the frontrunner in the mayoral race after his June primary win, has promoted radical initiatives such as eliminating all cash bail and abolishing prisons. Abolishing prisons, that's crazy, because if you abolish prisons, what are they going to do with the crooks and criminals and the people that are dangerous to society? I have questions. Earlier this month, the Trump administration rolled out a plan aimed at making Washington, D.C. safer and more beautiful, as his administration doubles down on efforts to address crime and a growing homeless population in the nation's capital. On Friday, Trump said he was considering sending the National Guard to Chicago, calling the Windy City a mess, although the White House has not offered additional details of a potential deployment of troops to Chicago. Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson later called the Trump administration's efforts uncoordinated, uncalled for, and unsound, seemingly snapping back at the president, who called him grossly incompetent earlier in the day. Johnson added the city has reduced homicides by 30%, robberies by 35%, and shootings by almost 40% within the last year, suggesting federal action would deteriorate the trust. The city, which struggles with poverty and gang activity, has a crime rate higher than the national average. Okay, so Trump's out here treating it like we're living on the streets of Baghdad. Family, that's what I want you all to pay attention to. Okay, he's talking about arming these troops. Pete Hegseth's idea, mind you. Let's talk about it. And then we're going to get into what people are saying about this. Hegseth authorizes National Guard troops in D.C. to carry weapons. So, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth has signed an order authorizing roughly 2,000 of the National Guard troops deployed in Washington to carry weapons. Okay, 2 U.S. officials gave this information to NBC. Now, in recent weeks, hundreds of National Guard members fanned out across the nation's capital as part of what the White House has framed as an urgent crackdown on crime and lawlessness. And if that were true, you guys, Trump should be the first one that was incarcerated, okay, if that were actually what they were doing. Okay, the troops in Washington have been unarmed. They have mostly been sent out to assist local law enforcement officers in parts of Washington known for tourism, such as the National Mall. The 2 U.S. officials said Hegseth's authorization will be approved by the U.S. Marshal Service, an agency of the Justice Department. Guard members who are supporting law enforcement functions will likely carry weapons, whereas troops who are assigned to beautification tasks across the district likely won't be armed. Now, they say at the direction of the White House of the Secretary of Defense, they say JTF DC members supporting the mission to lower the crime rate in our nation's capital will soon be on mission with their service-issued weapons, consistent with their mission and training. This is what a U.S. defense official said, using the acronym for Washington's Joint Task Force. The task force confirmed on Friday that Guard members will carry M17 pistols intended for personal protection. They say Guard members receive initial, regular, ongoing, and refresher training, as well as complete annual weapons qualifications prior to carrying weapons. That's what the Joint Task Force noted in a statement. Now, the deployment of National Guard members to Washington has drawn intense criticism from Democratic leaders who say the move is a clear case of executive overreach. The National Guard is traditionally focused on domestic crises such as national disasters and civil unrest. Mayor Muriel Bowser has pointed to Washington police data showing that violent crime has decreased 26% compared with last year. The Justice Department launched an investigation into whether the district's police department manipulated crime data to make crime rates seem lower. Bowser's spokesman declined to comment on Hegseth's order. Trump greeted dozens of law enforcement personnel and National Guard troops in Washington on Thursday, thanking them for what he described as a strong start to his administration's anti-crime and beautification measures, saying, "I feel very safe now, and I'm hearing people are very safe." That's what he told the crowd while flanked by senior administration officials, later adding that, you people are winners, and I just think it's such an honor to be with you. We're going to make Washington, D.C. great again. Trump implied the troops would remain in Washington for at least 6 months. He said, "You do the job on safety, and I'll get this place fixed up physically, and we're going to be so proud of it at the end of 6 months." Trump, please sit down somewhere. Do y'all hear this? Do y'all hear this? This is all a disaster waiting to happen, just like I said. Now let's go to some of the footage of what people are saying about these the military being armed amongst. Okay, let's get into it. Likes up, everyone, please like and share. Thank you in advance.
Ordering over 2,000 troops in DC to be armed is the biggest fucking red flag ever. Because if y'all think back to his confirmation hearing, he refused to answer any of these questions. So listen to these questions that they were asking him and beware of what's to come.
You're the Secretary of Defense. Would you send troops to 15 cities? If the president said do it, would you do it?
It's a complete hypothetical lacking any context at all.
You're the Secretary
and I refuse to box myself in based on questioning on a hypothetical.
But you're here asking for $1 trillion, and I want to know how you're going to spend it. And so my question is, if Donald Trump tells you to send troops to 15 American cities, are you going to spend the money and send the troops?
Thankfully, we're spending money on securing our southern border, a way the previous administration abandoned and allowed 21 million illegals to enter our country. So,
by the president, I'm going to ask you once again, to shoot peaceful protesters in the legs, would you carry out such an order from the president?
Senator, as I've said before, of course, I reject the premise of your question and the characterization that I would be given or are given on lawful orders. It's all meant to attempt to smear the commander-in-chief.
Considering that the president. Y'all see how he refused to answer the fucking question. If Donald Trump was to ask you to send troops into 15 different states, would you obey his orders? I'm not going to answer a hypothetical about unlawful orders. What does he plan on doing? Sending troops into 19 fucking states at Dookie Booty's orders. What was the other question she asked? If Donald Trump was to order you to allow troops to pew-pew protesters in the leg, would you follow that order? I'm not going to answer hypotheticals about unlawful orders. Is that what's to come? Is that why he wants to make sure all the troops are armed? Y'all got to look back at the confirmation hearings. Look at the questions that these people refuse to answer, and that'll give you an idea of what's to come. Everything that they was asking these people, they knew that it was going to happen, and now it's happening.
Given the order to be able to shoot at unarmed protesters in any way? I'm just asking the question. Don't laugh. Like the whole country. And by the way, my colleagues across the aisle. What is that based on?
What evidence would you have that an order like that has ever been given?
Giving that order to your predecessor, to a Republican Secretary of Defense, who I give a lot of credit to because he didn't accept the order. He had more guts and balls than you because he said, I'm not going to send in the uniformed military to do something that I know in my gut isn't right. He was asked to shoot at their legs. He wrote that in his book. That's not hearsay. So your poo-pooing of this, it just shows you don't understand who we are as a country. Who we are. And all of my colleagues across the aisle, especially the ones that served, should want an apolitical military and not want citizens to be scared of their own military. I love the military. I served alongside my whole life. So I'm worried about you tainting it. Have you given the order? Have you given the order that they can use lethal force against honor? I want the answer to be no. Please tell me it's no. Have you given the order?
Senator, I'd be careful what you read in books and believing it, except for the Bible.
Oh my God. So your former predecessor.
Okay, for anybody that's slow, that clearly means yes. The fact that he wouldn't just say, no, I have not given them the orders that they can take a person's life, that's just yes. Okay, that's what it is. These people are ruthless. He doesn't want it to be on the record because if it happens, then he can be held responsible.
Has given the National Guard the go-ahead to start carrying weapons when they are deployed in Washington, D.C. And for those of you who don't know, up until this point, they've actually been unarmed. You see all the photos of them. They're just standing around literally like with their hands in their pockets because they don't even have a weapon on them. But Hegseth now has said, go ahead and carry those bang bangs, boys. And gotta say, that is certainly an escalation. And it will certainly change the vibe because it's one thing if people are just walking around in vests and in, fatigues and whatnot, and like certainly looks pretty, fucking weird and like a little bit tense. It's another thing entirely when they're carrying, long, what's, across their chest. I mean, it'll certainly change the vibe a lot. And it'll also change the urgency because one thing I've noticed about all these guys is that when you actually get up close to some of them, these guys are like fucking 19, dude. They're so young. Like some of these dudes look like they just graduated high school. It's insane. Now imagine you send them from fucking West Virginia, you send them from Tennessee, you send them from Ohio, and places where they're nothing like DC, and they have it drilled in their head, some of them, that DC is Gotham City. DC is nothing but lawlessness. There's no order here. It's just a savage city as far as they're concerned. They're practically quaking in their boots just being here. And you put them especially up against any number of like protesters who maybe they already feel a little bit nervous of, and now you give them long. Ooh man, talk about a recipe for disaster, man.
Okay, he's absolutely correct. As young as they are, it's clear they don't have much experience. They may have training, but if you have training but no experience, who knows what you do when you have to make a split-second decision? That is absolutely a recipe for disaster. It is absolutely crazy. Okay, but this is all on Trump and Pete Hegseth's orders. Panther Strike says, Queen, you gave us lifelines years ago, and now we're seeing just what you were talking about. Exactly. Thank you, beloved. Now listen to this.
With Pete Hegseth authorizing the military to carry weapons and live ammunition in D.C., it's only a matter of time before they start mowing people down in the street. You know it, and I know it. And if for some reason you think that's not going to happen, it's because you've been brainwashed into believing that the military exists to protect your freedoms. But in reality, they exist to protect the freedom of multinational corporations to pillage the earth for natural resources and exploit the people. Period. Those freedoms that you did have that are going away rapidly, those were fought for. They were fought for by labor unions. We've been trying to tell you for years, and nobody wanted to listen. Good luck.
Okay, he's not lying. A lot of people didn't want to listen. They're going to be somewhere crying in the car when it all goes down.
Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth just recently gave the National Guard that is here in Washington, D.C., the green light to carry around weapons as they walk amongst civilians. Folks, regardless of what this administration is saying, we are not in the streets of Baghdad. We are not armed militia. There are civilians, there are children walking around DC, going to different monuments, going to different museums. Why do these people need to be dealing with this? This isn't a war zone. The German Luftwaffe is not inbound. These are civilians. And we're spending taxpayer dollars on our troops to walk around here and essentially put fear in the hearts of the American people. And desensitize all of us to having troops always on our block for the day that Donald Trump decides he's going to run for a third term. This is madness. Madness beyond belief. And it is a sad day in American history.
You got that right. And darn sure is a sad day in American history. But, you know, this is what many of the people voted for. Now, with that all being said, red text, RHEDTX, please be careful of what you put in the chat. So far, I've deleted 2 of your comments. Please use abbreviations. Okay, we don't put the word jigga unless you abbreviate it. And please do not put any words referencing saltines, townhouse, or Ritz. Okay, we don't use that type of language on here, beloved. Thank you kindly. Now, moving right along, here is another person to speak about Hegseth and some other BS he has going on. Firing everybody.
Pete Hegseth is firing top military officials with no explanation and replacing them with MAGA loyalists. It's not the first time he's done this either. He fired the heads of the Navy Reserve and Naval Special Warfare Command from their positions. A Navy official confirmed the firings to task and purpose. Vice Admiral Nancy LaCour and Rear Admiral Milton Jamie Sands III, head of Naval Special Warfare Command, had each been in their leadership roles for a year. The worst part is no reason for these firings was given by the Navy officials. They were the latest in a string of high-profile firings in the Department of Defense. These firings come the same day that Hegseth also fired the director of the Defense Intelligence Agency. He was dismissed for a loss of confidence, they say. This is the usual term used by the military to cover a variety of reasons for a relief of command. The DoD's official comment was that he will no longer serve as DIA director. Nice explanation. It's not like they weren't qualified either. LaCour joined the Navy in 1990 and served as a helicopter pilot. She worked her way through multiple leadership positions before becoming the chief of the Navy Reserve in 2024. And Sands was a Navy SEAL who joined in 1992 and served in Afghanistan. He worked his way up and led the Naval Special Warfare Command since August of 2024. These brave men and women are being replaced by MAGA loyalists who are not qualified to work these positions. Their only qualification is that they will do whatever Donald Trump tells them to do.
That's it. Just be a bunch of yes men and women. That's all he really wants. Okay? Follow what he says to the T. Okay, so Rachel says income taxes were supposed to be temporary until the war ended, but they never repealed the law. Exactly. You all should watch this documentary called From Freedom to Fascism. Okay, it tells you all about the BS. All right, and so red text, thank you, beloved. It's no problem. Okay, so now with that all being said, let's go to this one. Now, actually, I just played this video because I like the guy's accent.
So wait, did you hear what just happened with the National Guard in D.C.? So here's the tea. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth just signed an order letting roughly 2,000 National Guard troops in Washington, D.C. carry weapons. Before this, they were completely unharmed. These troops have been deployed for weeks, helping local police, especially around tourist spots like the National Mall. But now things are changing. President Trump visited the troops yesterday, saying he feels very safe now, and hinted that they will be there for at least 6 months. Not everyone's happy about this. Democratic leaders are calling it executive overreach, while DC's mayor points out that violent crime is actually down 26% from last year. Over 700 people have been arrested since this operation started. What's your take? Is this necessary for safety or going too far? Drop your thoughts below. Don't forget to like, share, and follow for more updates that affect you.
Where'd he get that voice from? I think he missed his calling, honey. He should he should be doing voiceovers. Hold on. Very bright shirt. Just anticipates that he's handsome too. You all are something else. Okay, now let's go to this last video and then we're going to talk about all of this foolishness. Okay, Easy said, are them LGBTQ colors? Easy, stop hating on that man, okay? Okay, here we go. I am so done.
So let's talk about this continuous mess that Whiskey Pete and the Orange Funnel Cake continuously lays out for the public to see. When the National Guard of DC is to be armed and roaming the streets yet again. So as of earlier today, Whiskey Pete directed his National Guard and the troops to roam the streets with law enforcement equipped with firearms now. Not only did Whiskey Pete release the National Guard with firearms today, but he also reversed a last week's directive from the Pentagon and the Army that states that the 2,000 Republican-led troops that were sent from several states must remain unarmed and coincide with the expanded law enforcement. It's even worse when the funnel cake in chief is applauding the efforts of the AA constituent, Whiskey Pete, and asking Congress for $2 billion to enhance the city's infrastructure and appearance as well. Mayor Bowser also stated that the crime rate has been at a 30-year low, 40% under, to be exact. And what was said by Whiskey Pete and Funnel Cake in Chief? That she was wrong, just like the Labor Statistics Commissioner, which also puts her in a tough spot because now the National Guard has authorization to use weapons consistently and to carry out their mission with no halt and most haste. I got two questions for you. What happened the last time that Whiskey Pete carried out his missions with the armed forces and his troops? And when was that time that he carried out that mission? One thing is for certain, you're abusing your power, Whiskey Pete, Funnel Cake in Chief. You must have congressional approval before you can release the National Guard and or armed forces. You must have an imminent threat of an invasion happening amongst the public, amongst the country, in order to release said National Guard and or armed forces. These are things you learned in your Constitution. If you read them, there are checks and balances before you can do things. Let's continue to wander.
Okay, this is what people are saying about it all. It's definitely political overreach. Now, with that all being said, we know Lori Lightfoot or Leadfoot came out and said what she had to say about him sending troops to Chicago. Okay, Mayor Brandon Johnson came out and spoke, and now the Illinois Attorney General reacts to Trump's making plans to deploy National Guard to Chicago also. So let's get into it. All right, it's so Dorana said, please don't disrespect the funnel cake like that. Okay, the nicknames they come up with for Trump's silly self.
Talk more about this possible National Guard deployment to Chicago is Kwame Raoul. He is the Attorney General for the state of Illinois. Sir, thank you so much for coming on the show. I want to start with the Trump saying that Chicago is next. He's saying that this is because of crime. He's saying Chicago is a mess, but the crime data is really painting a different picture here. Chicago police reported last month that homicides are down 32% year over year. Shooting incidents are down 37%. Motor vehicles and carjackings also considerably down. And we're looking at a graphic of that right now for our audience. So in light of all of this, why do you think he's going after Chicago?
Thank you for having me. I think it's performative. I think that data that you just related is a result of us having great law enforcement leaders in the city of Chicago and the state of Illinois. We have a tremendous police superintendent here. And one of the things that we embrace, my office and other law enforcement agencies throughout the state, is a one-team concept, which includes partnership with federal law enforcement agencies who are trained to deal with crime, which the National Guard is not. That includes the FBI, the ATF, DEA, even in some instances, Homeland Security investigations and Secret Service. We've had tremendous partnerships with federal law enforcement during the Trump administration and during the Biden administration. And so we're not opposed to that ongoing partnership with those who are trained to deal with crime.
Yeah, and to be clear, he's not asking for permission. He hasn't spoken to any of the city or state leadership there. What does that say to the American public when this is happening in cities and states? And he claims will continue to expand.
Well, the fact that he's not embracing the collaboration that you usually do to deploy the National Guard, communicating to the governor, means that it's another step towards authoritarianism, that he's operating as a dictator, turning the military against the American citizens in cities on American land is unprecedented and it's unheard of.
The Democratic governor of Illinois issued a statement yesterday calling Trump's plan to deploy troops there, quote, an abuse of power, and said Illinois, as you have mentioned, never asked for this. He has not heard from the federal government. And then he said this: Donald Trump is attempting to manufacture a crisis, politicize Americans who serve in uniform, and continue abusing his power to distract from the pain he is causing working families. To you, sir, I ask this: if the White House moves forward without the approval from the state, what legal actions would your office take?
Yeah, it all depends. It all depends on what specific actions that the National Guard, if they are deployed, are suggested to perform. It's an offense to the sovereignty of states where we allow for the primary enforcement of public safety to happen at the local and the state levels, for that to be left to the states in collaboration with federal law enforcement. But the Posse Comitatus Act limits the ability for the president to federalize the National Guard. We don't have a foreign invasion. We don't have a rebellion. And so we will use our legal tools to challenge it, as has been done in California, and we're waiting for the results of the litigation in California.
Yeah, and I know you've been a part of several lawsuits against the administration, even recently, for withholding millions of dollars from the state in money that would go toward helping victims of crime. Something that I read your statement, you have said is horrible. If he cared about the victims of crime, he wouldn't be withholding that. Of course, he cites crime data, not sure which data that is, and he's citing immigration policies. Kwame Raoul, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me.
No, your email did not find me well. It found me curled in a ball crying under my desk. I didn't.
All right. So with that all being said, it just looks like the Democrats are not doing anything, okay, except running their mouths, just making a bunch of complaints and just not doing anything really to quell what Trump is trying to do. Listen to this. Likes up, everyone. Please don't forget to like and share. Thank you in advance.
Is this even a question? Of course we should. Did we not learn our lesson when we acquiesced early on in the administration? Look, we didn't start off with a good foot. We had Democrats vote for Lake and Riley that has allowed for deportation without due process. We had Democrats vote for capitulation. We need to stand our ground.
They're all talking about they need to stand their ground, but it doesn't look like any of them are doing it. And by the way, they said that Putin is just stringing Trump along. Same thing I told you all last week. But before we get into that, let's talk about how Trump has threatened to pull the Smithsonian Museum funding. Okay, if they don't do what he says and how he said it. Here we go.
Indicated he plans. This week, President Donald Trump indicated he plans to review the content of Smithsonian museums, claiming they focus too much on uncomfortable aspects of U.S. history rather than the country's accomplishments. In a social media post, Trump claimed the Smithsonian is out of control and its topics are, quote, horrible. He specifically cited its documentation of slavery. This latest threat follows an executive order signed in March outlining a plan to make the institutions a place of inspiration. Trump says if the Smithsonian continues to promote what he calls divisive ideology, then he will pull the museum's funding. The Smithsonian website says it is the world's largest museum complex with 21 museums and a national zoo. For more on this, I'd like to bring in Uhuru Williams. He is a history professor at the University of St. Thomas. Thank you so much for talking to us today.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Did you ever think you would be having a conversation like this in the first place, hearing Trump's comments?
Quite frankly, before Trump's first presidency, no. But given what we saw the last time Trump was in office, I think a lot of people anticipated that this might be a course that he would take with regard to the Smithsonian in its effort to whitewash U.S. history.
What do you think of his comments when he says the museum focuses on these uncomfortable parts of American history, including slavery? How concerning is that to you?
Very, because it's very clear that the president is not knowledgeable at all about the process by which the Smithsonian and other institutions have gone about really reviewing what's appropriate with regard to a presentation of the complex history of the United States. It's also untrue that the United States, or that many museums in the United States, focus on slavery in the way that the president describes. It's more the propaganda that we've seen, unfortunately, here in the United States, and efforts by the Trump administration to divert attention away from real issues and to focus on these cultural touchstones, which are not based in reality, but the president's fantasies about an imagined America that, quite frankly, that museums like the Smithsonian do a very good job of correcting the record of and saying, that's a mythology. The reality is that we've had huge challenges in this nation with regard to economic, social, and political inequality. Slavery is a good example of that. And telling that history honestly can be a great compass for the nation, for young people in particular, to avoid those challenges in the future.
We know that President Trump has said these Smithsonian museums are, quote, out of control. But explain to our viewers exactly what would be lost if Trump was able to control what's featured in museums like the Smithsonian.
A great deal. And I think this is part of the concern in this moment. People elected Trump as president of the United States, commander in chief of the military. People did not elect Donald Trump to set the nation's curriculum. This is still a democratic republic. And the reality is that if you whitewash history in this way, what you ultimately destroy is the inability or the ability of people to recognize the challenges that I mentioned earlier, but also to have a correct portrait of the past in a way that would empower them to think creatively about how we navigate the present and how we reimagine the future. And we can see this in a variety of issues with regard to race, with regard to class, with regard to working people, gender. And museums really need the latitude to be able to tell that story in all of its complexity. The fact that the president has sent in a team of lawyers to do this work, rather than if this were a legitimate inquiry. And even then, I think there'd be questions about it. But if legitimately the president said, we want to send in a team of scholars to review and to make sure that we're covering all sides, it would be a different conversation. But even then, given the way that the administration has politicized everything, I think red flags would be raised. This current approach, though, is a clear indication that the administration has very little respect for these institutions. We saw it with higher education. We're now seeing it with the Smithsonian. And it's really an attempt by President Trump to remake these institutions in his own flawed image, an imagination of what this great America that never was.
We only have about a minute left, but you are a professor of history. Given the conversation we're having right now, how concerned are you for younger students or the next generations?
I'm terrified because we've seen this happen not only in terms of this national effort to whitewash institutions like the museum, but we've seen it in terms of higher education and efforts to really restrict what's taught in K-12 education. So I think all U.S. citizens should be very concerned about this and should be working to push back, not only to preserve that history, but also to work toward restoring what was an effort for young people to think critically about the past, to empower them to how to act in a participatory democracy toward a better future.
This conversation in and of itself is likely.
Okay, so you all should really be thinking about The Handmaid's Tale, because that's what it sounds like this entire country is headed toward. Okay, first getting rid of the museums and the history, and the next thing you know, they've already banned books from some of the schools, specifically in Florida. But the next thing you know, they'll be banning those books to even be sold in the United States. Now, if you think that sounds crazy, think again. Okay, think again. Trump is literally trying to rewrite history, trying to make everything favorable to people who look like him, okay, and trying to act as though they didn't do the heinous, depraved, inhumane things that they actually did. Okay, and that's why everyone who looks like me should be teaching your children and grandchildren the truth of their history, so these stories can be passed down from generation to generation, because soon they will not be in history books, and you may not even be able to write books talking about these things. All right, because we know that this country has a history of destroying books that contain knowledge and information they don't want shared. All right, that's how that goes. But here's one Democrat who sounds like he wants to give Trump the smoke, but seems like he can't get anyone to back him up because the rest of the Democrats seem to be afraid, just like I said.
You clapped and loved it when Donald Trump was spewing this kind of garbage, but now that Gavin Newsom is doing it, that's just a bridge too far. No, look, I'm telling you right now, we need more people like Gavin Newsom to come out here and fight fire with fire. I'm sick and tired of people thinking that Democrats are weak. We're not weak, and we should prove that we're not weak. Go nose to nose with any one of these people. Look, I will work with anybody who has good ideas that will help the people. But make no mistake about it, I'm not going to sit there and let somebody just push me around, and I'm not going to sit there and be quiet when I see somebody spewing BS.
All right, y'all heard what that man said. He's not going to sit there and be quiet when he hears somebody spewing BS. But that's what many of the Democrats seem to be doing. Crickets. Okay, Adrian says Trump is in heaven. When he is out of office and retired, he'll be telling his grandchildren, I was once the first and only ruler of America. Yeah, that definitely sounds like something that he would try, okay? I wouldn't put it anywhere, I wouldn't put it past him. Okay, now let's go to this video, and then we got to talk about Putin, how he's playing Trump just like a fiddle, as I have told you all a myriad of times.
I already told y'all this was going to happen. I told you he was going to be upset. He's already challenging Trump, already telling people to rise up against tyranny. I've never seen anything so insane in my entire life. I've never seen it. They would rather, because they don't want Trump to get a win. This is all about Trump not getting a win. They don't want Trump to come in and do what he did in D.C., because what that shows is that it could have been done. That if Democrats really focused, they could really stop the crime in their cities. But because it shows, the reason they don't want Trump in Chicago to come to Chicago and in Baltimore and these places is because it shows their incompetence. It shows that it could be done. Just like Democrats said for the longest that we needed a bill to secure the border. That's what they was saying for all this time. But they needed a bill. They needed a bill. And it turned out we just needed a new president, because immediately when Trump got in office, he shut the border down. The most secure it's ever been. But the Democrats under Joe Biden, when he let in over 20 million illegal immigrants, right? No celebrity, none of these liberals had a problem with that. The invasion of our country. But they want to criticize everything Trump does to try to get these same people out of the country, right? They want to act like it's immoral to remove these people that Biden let in, right? So it's just the Chicago is crime ridden. It's dangerous. Baltimore, all these states, and it helps Black and brown people. It helps people who are the ones that they're saying that are the ones that they're trying to protect. It is disgusting.
Now, did you all hear this clown? I want y'all to pay attention. You see, these are the scary Black folk. All right. These are the scary Black folk. Did you hear how he sounds? He's literally saying that it's okay. And in fact, he's all for what Trump is doing and saying that the Democrats just don't want him to come because that's going to prove that it could be done. I'm sorry. Anybody can clean up the streets anywhere if you have militarized police coming through, the National Guard, the feds with big guns and rifles. People will be scared to come outside. Okay, so he sounds obtuse. Now, the fact that he thinks this is okay, I wonder why he's not asking how come Trump's not going to other areas rather than just the Black communities. He talks about the immigrants so much. How come he's not going to their communities? Okay, how come he's not going to some of the neighborhoods where the people look like him? Does he think they don't commit crime? Okay. So at the end of the day, there's some of us amongst us who, of course, know this is a crazy idea and that Black people are being targeted specifically, and also that Black leadership is being targeted, these Black mayors and governors. But this clown right here, there's also some of us who sadly think like him. Okay, so you have to know what the other side is always thinking. So I keep my eyes on them at all times because those are the scared to death Negroes. All right? That's how that goes. Now, with that all being said, the level of Trump's depravity continues to get more intense as the days go by. His need for power and overreach continues to grow. And meanwhile, nobody's really doing anything, like I said. They keep talking tough, but why hasn't anyone filed impeachment charges on Trump? How come nobody's done that as of yet? Okay? Like, that's just crazy to me. Get his behind out of office before he does further damage that we can't even rectify until decades from now.
To our breaking news on Trump's military takeover in Washington, D.C. This new footage just coming out last hour showing armed National Guard troops walking around downtown D.C. The first time we have seen these troops carrying arms since Trump's attempted takeover of the nation's capital. The troops have M17 pistols holstered on their hips and have a MP patch on their uniforms, designating their role as military police. Texas Congressman Joaquin Castro joins us now. He sits on the House Foreign Affairs and Intelligence Committees. Congressman, it's great to have you back on the show. Your reaction to these armed guards now marching and walking in the streets of D.C.? Hi, Congressman. I feel you might be muted. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like creeping authoritarianism and creeping fascism. And it's not about safety, it's about control. And so those images are very disturbing to see in an American city. And the thing is that Donald Trump has promised now to do it in other American cities as well. And so other cities could be facing the same fate. Congress has been out of session in Washington for the month of August. And so, I haven't been there and other members of Congress haven't been there, but it's incredibly disturbing to see those images.
Congressman, let's move to foreign policy. And this morning, NBC News' Kristen Welker had a really great interview with Russia's Foreign Minister, Sergei Lavrov. And let's listen to that. And I want to get your response at the end of it.
You're saying there's no meeting planned right now.
Kristen, I'm awfully sorry, you're not listening. There is no meeting planned, and I'm not challenging this. Putin is ready to meet with Zelensky when the agenda would be ready for a summit. And this agenda is not ready at all.
So, Congressman, Donald Trump rolled out the red carpet and hoped that this meeting would happen, but here you have Russia's top diplomat saying that Putin is not ready to meet with Zelensky.
Yeah, I think that probably what's going on is that Vladimir Putin is just buying time because, unfortunately, right now, Russia is winning the war. They have been doing better the last several months than Ukraine has. So he feels like he's got the upper hand and he's got leverage and he is stringing Donald Trump along. And the problem here is that President Trump has been inconsistent in terms of who he's siding with. Sometimes he makes comments that seem favorable to Ukraine. So other times he's making comments that seem favorable to Russia. And so it's unclear exactly where he's trying to get out of this whole thing. He hasn't offered any kind of security guarantees to Ukraine. And so he's left our European partners so far out of the discussions, even though they've committed billions and billions of dollars to helping Ukraine throughout this war. And so I think a lot of us, you think about the president of the United States engaging with a war criminal, somebody who's done all these bad things to the people of Ukraine. But you also think, well, look, if this thing's going to end, then the sides have to talk to each other. Unfortunately, that negotiation, what happened in Alaska, was a complete bust, a complete disappointment. And so far, not much ground has been made.
Let me play for you, Congressman, what J.D. Vance said today when he was asked about a recent Russian attack on an American electronics plant that actually sits in Western Ukraine. Watch.
Were you enraged when you learned that Russia targeted an American company based in Ukraine?
I don't
Was
like
that
it,
not a slap
Kristen.
in the face
I
to the
don't.
peace
I don't
process?
like it, Kristen. But this is a war, and this is why we want to stop the killing.
So he doesn't answer that he is enraged when he is asked about it. He kind of seems, he just says, I don't like it, and kind of says this is war. Your reaction to that, sir?
I mean, I'm just amazed. Russia is one of the few countries that Donald Trump and everybody associated with his administration seems to forgive for just about anything. Russia can almost do no wrong in the eyes of Donald Trump and his administration. And that's what's so, so troubling about the prospect of actually the Trump administration helping to accomplish peace, is that he doesn't seem to be serious about holding Russia accountable.
I want to ask you about two election-related developments. Of course, what's happening in Texas, the president being able to get Republicans there to squeeze out 5 more seats for him, but then also saying that he's going to sign an executive order to put an end to mail-in voting around the United States. We spoke to the Secretary of State in Oregon, who pointed out that that's not legal, but that doesn't mean that this president won't try it anyway. What do you make of this administration's sort of attempted reshaping of our elections process as we head toward 2026?
I mean, it's incredibly disturbing. It's, Donald Trump himself has voted by mail before. It used to be, at least in Texas, that there were more conservatives and Republicans who voted by mail. There still are a lot of them who vote by mail. And so to me, my concern is that he's setting up a way to conduct fraudulent elections in 2026 or 2028, that he's setting up a way to cheat. That's my larger concern. And so it's very disturbing.
Congressman Castro, thank you.
Well, that's exactly what he's doing, in my opinion. I absolutely agree. What do you all think? Talking about no more mail-in ballots and all of that. Yeah, he's absolutely trying to find a way so he can do what he wants to do, okay? The same thing that he complained about was being done to him, all right, which was a whole lie. That's exactly what he wants to do, all right? He's running this country. Let me tell y'all something. He thinks, somebody said he's acting like he's in North Korea. He certainly is. And nobody's doing any darn thing. Reggie said, seems like Trump got the dress on now with his arms out, like, dance with me. My dress is pretty. Exactly. Okay. Robert says dictatorship. You already know. All right. Just doing whatever he wants. And then, just pulling all the strings. And if you dare to say anything against him, then he makes threats to take away your federal funding from your city, from the Smithsonian, from wherever and whatever he wants. Now, somebody made a comment that the Smithsonian is full of lies about our history anyway, and they don't really care if they take it down. Well, I happen to think they have some nice exhibits in there. I think they have some nice exhibits in there. And the truth about our history. Otherwise, if it was lies, all lies and BS, Trump wouldn't really care. He wouldn't be focusing on it. That's what he wants to put in there, is lies about history. He doesn't want the truth being told. Let's not have them looking like they were doing depraved and inhumane things. Make it all like the slaves were asking for it. And they weren't even slaves. They were workers, remember? They voluntarily came here. These are the lies they want to put out. And all of these things that are going on are nothing more than distractions from Epstein. Listen to how every day he's talking about going to another city. He's talking about bringing in more federal troops. Now they're going to be armed and all of that. This has all gotten everyone away from the topic of discussion about the Epstein list, just as Trump wanted them to do. That's all this is. It's smoke and mirrors, just to keep people from talking about the main event. See how the conversation, the narrative has changed and shifted? Okay, please pay attention. Trump thinks that he is so slick, but he's not. And the fact that he's targeting all of these Black Democratic leaders is very concerning. The Black people who voted for this man really need to be questioning themselves right about now. Okay, Richard said, I ain't forget about Epstein. Exactly. All right. So anyway, with that being said, I'm going to conclude this broadcast. I'll be back later on, you guys, at about 6:30. Okay, so everyone, please like and share. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Be sure to click that notification bell and click the word all so you're notified each time the Queen Goddess goes live. I love you all to life. All right, and so I will talk to you all again soon. Peace.
With that flavor all in my skin, God all in my blood, kings all in my circle. You touch one of mine and you're done. They show no love for the queen. Why you hating on me? Is it cause I'm free and I got Malcolm X in my jeans? I got dreams like King Luther, shed blood like Kunta. You ain't helping my people, I ain't got nothing to say to ya. I want all the smoke like hookah. Talking reparations, America won't be great until they give us compensation. I'm like, I'm the hottest right now. See a bunch of lames out here trying to jock on my style. They be doing too much. I'm the queen, it's too easy. It's like they all at Popeyes, how they be talking so greasy. I just sit back and laugh while these haters get madder. So nefarious how they don't want my pockets with cheddar. I tell them they can do better. These snakes in the grass can leave a bite on your ass, cause y'all be trusting too fast. I got my foot on the gas, other one on they necks. Dropping receipts on haters, you better show some respect. I'm never facing regrets, we only facing the threats. Running through every challenge like a relay, break no sweat. It's a cold game, so I got that blanket with me. Now that my people awaken, ain't no going to sleep. I do not play by my piece, this time I'm playing for keeps. You talking slick, but when I see you like them ends, we gon' meet. And I got gold all in my skin, God all in my blood, kings all in my circle. You touch one of mine and you done. They show no love for the queen, why they hating on me? Is it cause I'm free and I got Malcolm X in my jeans and I got gold all in my skin, God all in my blood, kings all in my circle. You touch one of mine and you done. They show no love for the queen, why they hating on me? Is it cause I'm free and I got Malcolm X in my jeans and I got